when Hollywood's nicest, most beloved actor finally hits his breaking point. During live television of all things, what happened at The View shocked the entire studio. It all started when Joy Behar crossed a line many agree she shouldn't have. And then what happened next was unthinkable. By the time you get to the end of this story, you'll finally understand why Keanu Reeves, the actor known for his calm demeanor and selfless kindness, was finally pushed too far to stay silent. Before we continue, please subscribe and let us know your thoughts in the comments section. You won't want to miss the twist this story takes. It all began as another typical episode of The View. The familiar theme music swelled, and the crowd erupted into a wave of applause as the hosts made their entrance. One by one, they took their seats around the famous table, where countless controversial discussions and memorable interviews had previously taken place. Joy Behar sat regally in her chair, prepared with her usual sharp wit and fearless commentary. What she didn't know at the time, however, was that the next guest she had invited on the show wouldn't be appeasing her by smiling meekly and brushing her questions aside. At that exact moment, Keanu Reeves walked out onto the stage. Clad in a simple, sharp black suit, he commanded attention with a gentle presence and an overwhelming sense of calm. The moment the crowd spotted their favorite star, the applause became deafening as he walked towards the guest chair, offering a humble wave. Despite being one of Hollywood's biggest names, Keanu had an air of quiet humility, moving like a seasoned dancer who knows exactly where he belongs. "Keanu, welcome to The View," Whoopi Goldberg warmly exclaimed as the cheers slowly began to die down. "It's wonderful to have you here." "Thank you for having me," Keanu responded softly, his voice calm and reassuring. "It's a true pleasure to be here with all of you." To start off the conversation, things were going smoothly. The hosts discussed his new movie, his love of motorcycles, and the many acts of kindness that have transformed him into an internet icon. From anonymously donating millions of dollars to strangers and tirelessly helping those in need without asking for a second of recognition, Keanu has managed to become one of the most beloved and reputable figures in the entertainment industry. Every question posed to him, he answered thoughtfully and without ego. Instead, Keanu radiated a sense of humble gratitude, precisely the response the public has come to expect. But something seemed out of the ordinary around the table. Joy Behar had been unusually quiet up to this point. Any loyal viewer of The View is well aware that when Joy remains silent for too long, it means she's preparing something. She tapped her pen against her notes with a subtle smirk while listening, the kind of knowing expression people wear before a storm hits. It was clear the calm before the storm had arrived. Without warning, she suddenly interrupted Keanu in mid-sentence while he was recounting a story about his experience working with younger actors. "Keanu," Joy declared, her voice cutting through the hushed studio. "There's something I've been wanting to ask you for a very long time." Instantly, a chill fell over the studio. The co-hosts exchanged knowing looks, and the studio audience seemed to hold their breath. Keanu turned to face her slowly, his expression still pleasant, but now with an intensity that hinted at a growing awareness. "Certainly," Keanu said calmly. "What would you like to know?" Joy leaned in across the table, a knowing smirk playing on her lips. "Well," she began, "you've created this incredible image of being Hollywood's nice guy, the humble actor who gives away millions and never asks for anything in return. But the truth is, I have to ask." She paused, letting the tension hang heavy in the air. "Is any of it actually real? Or is it simply the most expertly crafted PR stunt the industry has ever seen?" The entire studio fell silent. The audience stopped breathing. This wasn't just a question. This was a direct attack on the image of one of the most respected celebrities in the world. His face hadn't changed all that much initially. But if you really looked, if you really truly looked, you could see it. A slight tightening around his eyes, a barely perceptible shifting of his weight. He had his normal, calm surface, of course, but something definitely shifted underneath the facade. "I'm sorry," Keanu said quietly. "What do you mean by that?" For a second, the tension diffused. The air cooled. But Joy Behar clearly had no intention of letting up. Actually, the tension seemed to energize her. "Oh, please, Keanu," she said, leaning forward. "You're asking people to believe that a Hollywood actor, a man who's made hundreds of millions of dollars, is this purely selfless saint." Her tone grew sharp. That there's no agenda whatsoever behind all these acts of generosity? That the humble demeanor, the quiet personality, aren't just another well-played character? The tension in the room thickened. The other hosts around the table began shifting uncomfortably. It was obvious this conversation had gone somewhere no one anticipated. Whoopi Goldberg cleared her throat, seemingly hoping to steer things back onto safer territory. But Joy was on a roll. "Look at it," she continued. "Regular people don't have photographers following them around every time they donate to charity. Regular people don't have their kind gestures instantly turned into viral social media campaigns that coincidentally promote their latest movie." She paused, tilting her head. "So, forgive me if I'm a little wary of Saint Keanu." The words hung in the air. For a beat, Keanu didn't say a thing. He just sat there and absorbed it. And then he spoke. His voice was still controlled, still quiet, but something had definitely shifted. "Joy," he said slowly, "I understand skepticism is part of your job." He paused. "But this is not skepticism." His gaze met hers directly. "This is cruelty." For a moment, the room froze. And then Joy Behar laughed. She actually laughed. "Cruel?" she scoffed, leaning back in her chair with disdain. "Please, I'm asking questions that need to be asked. Cruel is manipulating people's emotions for profit. Cruel is creating a false public persona to sell movie tickets." And that's when something changed in Keanu Reeves. Not dramatically, not with a bang, but it was undeniably there. The man who had endured decades of immense personal tragedy with unwavering composure. The man known for his quiet patience and profound humility was reaching his limit. "Manipulation? You want to talk about manipulation, Joy?" Keanu said. His voice remained low, but there was a weight to it now that made everyone in the studio sit up straight. "Let's talk about manipulation." The sentence hung in the air, a palpable challenge. For the first time during the interview, Keanu Reeves was not backing down. He was meeting this head on. He looked directly at Joy Behar with an intensity that seemed to shrink the room. "You sit at this table every day," Keanu continued, his voice gaining volume and power with each word. "And you tear people down for sport. Nobody dared to interrupt. You take someone's genuine attempt to contribute to the world and twist it into something cynical and calculated." He paused again. "Because that's what gets you views. Doesn't it, Joy?" For the first time, Joy's characteristic smirk faltered. But she recovered quickly. "I'm a journalist, Keanu," she said. "I ask tough questions. If you can't handle them, perhaps you shouldn't be doing interviews." Keanu leaned forward. The stoic exterior he'd maintained for so many years was beginning to crack. "Tough questions?" he asked quietly. "You want to ask tough questions?" His voice grew a little sharper. "Then ask about the work. Ask me about the craft. Ask me about the stories we're trying to tell." His eyes didn't leave Joy's. Don't ask me if my grief is real. Don't question if my desire to help people is genuine. And don't insinuate that losing my best friend, my daughter, or watching my sister battle cancer transformed me into either a better person or a better actor. The mention of his personal tragedies caused a visible ripple through the table. The other host stared, wide-eyed. Even Joy seemed momentarily taken aback, but only for an instant. Her defensive armor snapped back into place. "Oh, now you're just being emotional," she scoffed. And just like that, the air in the room crackled even more intensely. Joy jumped back in immediately, her tone sharp. "I never mentioned your personal tragedies. I'm referring to your brand, your image. It's different." "No, Joy," Keanu retorted, raising his voice in a way none of them had ever witnessed before. "It's not. You can't separate the two when you attack a person's character. When you imply someone's kindness is a lie, that their generosity is calculated, you are attacking their essence. You are proclaiming that good doesn't exist, that every charitable act is self-serving." One of the other co-hosts tried to interject. "Maybe we should—" "No," Keanu stated firmly, his gaze fixed on Joy. "Let her finish. She clearly has more to say about my fabricated manipulation." "Go on, Joy. Enlighten us. Explain how changing a stranger's tire in the pouring rain is a publicity stunt. Tell us how donating my matrix salary was a business decision. Show us how financing a friend's cancer treatment is marketing." Joy's face contorted with anger as her voice grew louder. "This is precisely what I mean. You have an answer for everything. You conveniently summon a list of your good deeds whenever someone challenges you. That's not kindness, that's crisis management." A wave of murmurs swept through the audience as the show's co-hosts shifted uncomfortably in their seats, but Keanu was not finished. "Would you like to know what actual crisis management looks like, Joy?" Without warning, Keanu rose from his seat, startling everyone. "Crisis management," he calmly continued, his words sharp, "is when someone like you is called out for gratuitous cruelty on national television, and rather than showing remorse or a shred of human compassion, you escalate your attack. This is crisis management." "I'm not being cruel," Joy protested, though the bravado in her voice was fading. "I'm being honest. I'm being realistic." Keanu let out a harsh, sardonic laugh, a sound that had never been heard from him before. "Honest? Here's honest. You are not a journalist, Joy. You are a sensationalist. You seek not truth, but shock value. Facts are irrelevant to you. Reactions are all that matter. You don't inform the public. You incite them because an irate audience is a rapt audience, and you profit from people like me or from people like you." Whoopi attempted to interrupt. "Keanu, we could perhaps—" "No, Whoopi," Keanu cut her off, his gaze unwavering as he turned back to Joy. "With all due respect, I'm not done. You want to question my motives? Let's discuss yours. How much of your income is derived from creating drama? How much of your career is founded on the reputations of those who cannot defend themselves? And when one finally does, when one finally exposes you for what you truly are, you retreat behind the guise of journalistic integrity as though it grants you a license to be heartless." Joy's face flushed bright red, and her knuckles turned white from the force with which she gripped her pen. "How dare you lecture me on journalism? An actor who makes a living feigning other people's lives and feigning a persona as a kind individual." Keanu's response was swift. "At least I am honest about my job being fake." The studio fell into a stunned silence. The cameras continued to roll as the world watched in disbelief as Keanu Reeves, for the first time, pushed beyond his limits. You know what, Keanu? You're proving my point exactly. The mask is falling off, isn't it? The real you is coming out, and it's nothing like the person you've led everyone to believe you are. Keanu's voice dropped to a near whisper, yet it resonated with an unprecedented weight. The real me, Joy, he said slowly and deliberately, has buried more people than anyone ever should. The real me gets out of bed each morning with the intention of making the world a slightly better place, rather than an infinitely worse one. The real me believes that kindness counts, that helping others matters, that treating people with dignity and respect is of utmost importance. The room remained utterly silent, every word hanging in the air, laden with undeniable truth. For the first time that day, perhaps the first time ever, the audience, and indeed the world, saw not a celebrity, not a pop culture icon, but a man with a boundary, with principles, and with enough. And the real you, continued Keanu, his voice low but slicing, is someone who spent the last 10 minutes of national television trying to convince the world none of that is real. The words struck Joy like a physical blow. For the first time during the entire confrontation, she was actually speechless. The woman with the smart retort for everything, the one who could stand her ground against any opposition, sat stiff as a board, mouth hanging slightly ajar, staring at a man who had successfully knocked her flat and stolen every last defense she had. But Keanu wasn't done yet. The floodgates had been opened, and the years and years of repression were coming out. All of the bits and pieces that he had taken from others, all of the biting his tongue, all of the walking away from arguments. Those were coming out in a tidal wave. Do you know what the most tragic part is, Joy? He stated, quiet but sharp as a razor's edge, that you could be doing good with that voice, with that face, with all those millions of people tuning into, to watch, and listen to you every day. You could use this voice for good. You could be asking meaningful questions and enlightening the masses about real issues in the world. But instead, you use it to tear people down, to attack them, to play judge and jury because of one single thing. You chose to be a bully. He let that sink in for a moment. And not just a bully, but a bully with a microphone and the entire world watching. What is it that you're really afraid of, Joy? He asked, stepping closer. Are you afraid of yourself? Are you afraid of being real? Or are you simply afraid that when your cruel facade falls, all of the good people in the world will finally see that all those lies you've spun can't compete with even one good deed? Joy finally found her voice, but her voice was shaking. I'm not a bully, I ask tough questions. If you don't like them, then take a hike. Keanu spoke again, his voice holding a simple, undeniable authority. Just stop. Joy froze in mid-sentence. Enough, Keanu said, his voice as calm as could be. Or rather, you enough about 5 minutes ago, but you just can't stop, can you? You just can't let anyone have the last word, the last laugh. You just don't know when enough is enough, when skepticism goes too far, when a person's character is attacked for doing a decent thing. The other co-host chimed in again. Perhaps it would be better if we take a commercial break. No, said Keanu, firmly cutting her off with his eyes still locked on Joy. I think it would be best if we finish this conversation right here and right now, and I am going to let the people of the world know that playground bullies exist. Joy's anger ignited and her voice rose. Playground bully? Are you kidding me? I'm doing my job here. I'm calling celebrities out for their crap. I'm asking the questions that the people want to be asked. Keanu's voice grew, his words sharper than Joy's now, and ringing with a passion she hadn't seen before. What questions, Joy? Whose questions are you asking that need to be asked? Who is asking you to not believe in kindness? Who is asking you to tell the world that good people trying to do what's right are phonies, not to be trusted? Well, you can be darn sure that the people who are receiving and benefiting from this good deed are not asking you to take that kindness away from them. People who were struggling and found solace. People who were in need and were helped out. People who were hurting and were shown comfort. None of them are asking you to tear them down. All of the world has a right to know what really happened, though. He finished. Joy opened her mouth to retort, but Keanu cut her off again. The world has a right to know the real story, not your twisted version of it. The world has a right to the facts and the plain truth instead of your opinion that somehow qualifies as news. And I am just not sure the world really needs another lesson on how they are all being duped. When, all the while, the only people being duped are those who still believe in goodness. And there are still good people in the world. The other co-hosts exchanged uneasy glances. Some of them seemed mortified. Some of them seemed shocked. Some of them just seemed numb, knowing that this might just be the greatest television moment that anyone has ever witnessed. Joy tried again. Well, you know what I think, Keanu? I think you're having a giant temper tantrum, and it's because you know I'm right. I think you're furious because you think someone finally found out who you are, and you just don't know what to do with yourself anymore. It was in that moment. The entire studio went dead silent and the air was thick enough to be sliced with a knife. The world had not seen Keanu Reeves in what felt like forever. They had been seeing a gentle, unflappable film star for far too long. And all of a sudden, they were seeing a man pushed beyond the limit. For the first time since she met him years ago, even through all the years of grief and pain that life had so relentlessly thrown at him, Keanu Reeves, normally known for his calm, steady, unwavering disposition, completely lost it. Exposed? His voice boomed throughout the studio, loud enough that many flinched. Let's talk about what you've exposed today, Joy. You've exposed yourself for who you are. A person so bitter and so miserable and so incapable of believing that good can exist, that you feel the need to try and tear down anyone who would tell you otherwise. Joy tried to jump in, but Keanu wasn't done. No, your time to speak, your time to attack, your time to question and to tear down has passed. My time starts now. His voice was loud, measured like a precisely orchestrated explosion. You've exposed yourself for a woman who believes cynicism means intelligence, cruelty means bravery, and the act of tearing others down equates to building yourself up. You've exposed yourself for a woman who would rather destroy anything beautiful than concede that beauty has the capacity to exist. The studio air crackled. The audience was speechless, and you could feel the shock radiating off of them. This wasn't the Keanu Reeves they had all been told they knew, yet somehow this was the Keanu Reeves they had all needed to see. Do you know what else you've exposed, Joy? Keanu continued, his voice lowered back to that eerily calm level. You've exposed yourself for the kind of person that makes truly good people hold back. You are the voice in the back of their mind telling them not to help that stranger. You are the reason they don't share because of the judgment they fear they'll get for it. Joy's composure faltered. She tried one last, final attempt to reclaim some of her dignity. This is coming from a man who's having a complete meltdown on live TV. Is this the real Keanu Reeves? The real serene man you're trying to portray to us all? Keanu rose completely from his seat and stood towering over her. His voice remained steady and commanding, every word loaded with the gravity of a man who had not only lived, but suffered and endured. You are right, Joy. This is the real me. A man who has spent his life trying to be good, trying to be kind, trying to be helpful, and trying to bring as much beauty into the world as he possibly can. Who has finally reached his breaking point with someone who actively tries to convince everyone that none of that can possibly be true. A man who has lost everything and still chooses to love. A man who has been knocked down countless times more than any human being ever should be, yet has always gotten up and has always tried to reach his hand out and pull someone else up with him. A man who finally has become frustrated when confronted with someone whose only seeming purpose on this earth is to push down anyone who chooses to stand tall. He surveyed the other hosts on the panel and finally returned his gaze to Joy, who now looked very small in her seat. You want the real me, Joy? Here I am. I am a man who believes that there are too many people on this planet tearing each other down. I am the kind of man who believes in building people up. I am the kind of man who believes that with the kind of power and influence and ability that people have these days with an audience comes an overwhelming responsibility to do good. And what you have done here today, what you have done so many times on this show before today, has been the polar opposite of good. There was a beat of silence that seemed to stretch for minutes before Keanu picked up his jacket from the back of his chair and put it on. I don't think that I can participate in this show any further. Thank you for having me on, and I really hope that those of you watching got something useful out of this entire discussion, even if it wasn't what you expected." He turned and began to walk off, then stopped and turned back to Joy one final time, his face a picture of composed regret. "Enjoy! I truly hope that someday you can find what it is you're looking for by tearing other people down. I don't think that from where I'm standing it is currently making you very happy." Keanu walked off of the set, and there was a moment of complete silence before the camera zoomed in on Joy Behar, who was left speechless. The man she tried to expose had instead exposed her approach to the world, and it wasn't pretty. What do you think about the showdown between these two? Should Joy have pushed Keanu as hard as she did? Or was Keanu finally showing the real him after too much being provoked? Let us know your opinions in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe for more unforgettable celeb showdowns. Who do you want us to cover next?